Welcome back. Oh, I couldn't wait to have this conversation. Well, I alluded to this a few minutes ago. It's a powerful, critically acclaimed podcast all about friendship, unanswered questions, and Britney Spears. That's right. And you're thinking, that's a weird combo. You'll see, though. Unread. Unread is what it's called, and it's created by our guest today, Chris Stedman. It's a 4-part series where he tries to better understand his late friend Alex's life, following a trail of audio messages that Alex left behind. Before I talk to Chris, here's a little snippet of the podcast.
The first of the 2 audio files had part 2 in the file name, even though there was no sign of a part 1. Very Alex. I hit play on the second clip, the one that didn't say part 2, in case it was part 1. It wasn't. The first thing I heard was her.
My Twitter is Banana Alice, and I created it today. And
Banana Alice.
Oh my God. Banana Alice.
So that is, yeah. If you're a little confused, we will clear this up because that mysterious figure, Alice, sounds exactly like Britney Spears, and she becomes a riveting part of the podcast. Audience, give it up for the host of the podcast, Chris Stedman, everybody. First of all, before we get into exactly filling in some of the blanks, what made you want to do this? Where did this start?
Yeah, so it started obviously with a personal tragedy. In December 2019, I lost one of my closest friends, Alex. He died by suicide. And
very sorry.
Yeah,
very
thank
sorry.
you. And I learned of his death via a scheduled email that he had set up to go out after he died. In it, it was a goodbye, it was an explanation, but it also included these audio files that were him talking to this internet stranger he had met named Alice. And for the life of me, I couldn't figure out why he included these files in his email. They were kind of just dropped in without any context. And I remember he had told me about this figure, Alice. He had met her in this Britney Spears fan forum. And, I think he had thought maybe she could have been Britney, given that,
He thought that.
He
even thought
I think so.
that Alice could be.
Given that at the time she was in the conservatorship, and so she didn't have really, she was cut off from a lot of the world, a lot of her friends. And, I think he and some other fans thought that maybe she had found a way to get online to try and talk to people and find some connection. And so, as I was trying to make sense of his death and what happened, these files became this kind of obsession where I was trying to figure out why he sent them to me and what they meant. And at the time, the Free Britney movement was kind of gaining traction, and I thought, maybe there is something to this, this idea that Britney, at a time when she was really cut off from the world, might have sought out, support online or connection that she wasn't able to get in other parts of her life. And so, along with a group of Alex's friends and family, I set about trying to see if I could find this person and figure out what this mystery was all about.
At the beginning of the mystery, and you'll take this the way that I mean it in this question, the sending of the email and then the audio files, did that surprise you? Was he quirky? You're smiling because I'm trying not to. I don't want to offend, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm different. I would do something, fun, not fun, but I would do maybe something like that. Was this in his character profile to do something like this?
Yeah, a big part of what drew me to Alex when we first met was that he was just larger than life. He was the funniest person I've ever known in my life, and I am a little bit more of a serious person. I mean, I'm a professor. I teach, I'm just more of a dry person. And so what I loved about Alex was he was so unapologetically loud and himself, and he made me want to be more that way. And so, when he sent this email, obviously it was, one of the most horrible moments in my life.
Absolutely.
But it almost felt like this kind of last gift from him of this sort of strange mystery and an opportunity to try and embrace all the things that he taught me about, like I'm a skeptic, I question everything, whereas he was willing to embrace the fantasy that maybe this could have been Britney. And so it kind of felt like this way of one last opportunity to, be connected to him and to kind of embrace the fantasy that he had that maybe this was Britney. So it very much felt in line with his personality to say, I'm going to leave you this one last little sort of, strange experience, because he really was just, and for me that was also like, if anyone would have met Britney online and struck up a friendship, it would have been him.
It would have been him.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he was a big fan. You find, now look, I want you to listen to the pod. I started it and I can't wait to finish it, but I want to jump to it. I said in the intro, you talked to Alice.
Yes.
First impressions.
Yeah, so again, I'm very skeptical by nature, and so my sort of instinct was to assume that this was just some person online who happened to sound like Britney or was trying to sound like Britney. But there were a lot of things in the conversation which you'll hear on the podcast that gave me pause, and
Did it make you further skeptical?
Well,
or did it dot some I's for you?
I'll say this. Almost everyone I hear from who listens to the show, and as well as other people who worked on the show with me, are less skeptical than I am. So there are a lot of people who do think that was Britney. So, you have to listen and judge for yourself. I see some nods over there from people who have listened,
When we played, audience, I don't know, I probably should have told the audience so they would listen. When we played the soundbite, and the end when she giggles, it's the laugh that we all were like, that sounds very much like Britney.
Definitely the laugh got me too, yeah. But, I think this show is now a couple years old.
Yeah.
But there's been renewed interest in it recently because she posted on Instagram this video recently, which, don't make me defend her dance videos.
Yes.
But, she posted this video recently where she put in the caption, what name should I call myself or something, and then she put Alice, which made a lot of people, decide to go check out the show, which was, very unexpected to me, so.
Hold that thought. More, of course, when we come back. Back in a moment, everybody. Holy crap. Yeah. Welcome back. Great conversation. Chris Stedman's our guest. Unread is the podcast. Go do it now. Congratulations. It's made, it's a love letter of something very personal for your friend. I want to make sure I get this right. The compliment, best of lists from Vulture, the Huffington Post, The Guardian, and Mashable. Congratulations, my friend.
Thank you.
How that must feel good, not just when you get the critics, but the reception has been incredible.
Yeah, I'm a writer, and writing is just how I try to make sense of things that don't make sense to me. And sometimes that process is just for me, and I don't share that writing. But if I publish some piece of writing, whether it's in the form of the podcast or a book or something like that, it's because I hope that it could be useful to other people in some way. And for me, when I decided that I wanted to make this series, it was really, it was not long after Alex died. I had started a GoFundMe to help raise some money to support some of the costs associated with his death, to help his family out. And I just shared online, really matter-of-factly, how he had died. I said he had died by suicide. And I heard from all these people who just said, thank you for saying how he died, because there's such a culture of silence and shame around suicide loss. And I found myself, when I was trying to make sense of his death, looking for stories, resources from other people who had been through the experience, and I just couldn't find much, again, because there's so much silence around it. And so, I made this show, in part because I was tantalized by this mystery of who was this Alice person, could she have been Britney, but also because I was just trying to make sense of what happened, and to find some resources for, trying to navigate the experience of losing someone to suicide. And so for me, one of the most meaningful things in the last few years since the show came out has just been hearing from people who themselves have experienced suicide loss. Maybe they lost a sibling or a parent or a loved one, and that the show helped them through that process. For me, that I made it for myself, but also I shared it with the hope that it would help people in some way. And so, seeing it on a best list or something like that is nice, but for me, the real thing that I take, comfort and meaning in is just knowing the show could be a resource for other people.
Absolutely. We're sadly running out of. They're sadly running out of time. I want to get two things. Chris is a writer. I want to mention the book. But can I ask you? I'm not a very religious person, but I believe everything happens for a reason. Did you, while you're researching, did you feel his presence? If I can ask you that.
It's funny you mention religion and ask that because I teach religion.
Yeah, I know you do.
That's what I do by day.
It's not by accident. But yeah.
So, I love a question like this. And, I think the short answer is I don't know. I actually was doing an event at a university about a month after Alex died. And someone asked me if I believed in an afterlife or not. And it just was such an emotionally charged question for me at that moment because I had just lost one of the most important people to me in the whole world who just had completely changed my life in so many ways. And, I said that I just don't know. I wish I could say that I knew for sure, but, part of why I made the show and why I was trying to find this Alice person and figure out who she was because it was a way for me to still feel connected and close to Alex. And I feel like he really lives on in that series. And, that was really one thing I wanted to do was just to try to do justice to him as a person because he lived the kind of life that doesn't get memorialized. He's not going to get a big newspaper obituary or something like that, but his life deserves to be remembered too and honored and cherished. And so, for me, that was an important part of making that show. I
talk to a lot of people. This show is as old as cheese in your refrigerator. But I've really appreciated it and I've really enjoyed this talk. Would you do me a favor? Because TV, where it's like a traffic cop, we got to go do something else. Would you please come back so we can just exclusively talk about your book?
Sure.
I don't want to shortchange it if you would. Thank you. Yeah. Give it up for Chris Stedman, everybody. Unread the podcast is available right now wherever you get your podcasts. Go watch it and email us or Twitter, whatever it's called now. Let us know what you think, and we'll have Chris back on to talk about his book. We'll be right back, everybody. Back in a moment. I so appreciate it, Chris. Thank you. That was so great.